I hadn't planned on having to make another recording quite this soon. I planned on it for next week, talking about increased taxes under the current administration, but something happened yesterday. We actually have to go back a couple of days to the fact that Elon Musk, who seems to be the actual president, because he's doing a lot of things that maybe the president isn't even aware of, didn't necessarily approve of. Closing U.S. aid is one of those things. Let me explain. U.S. aid was an organization that gave out grants to different nations to build geopolitical allies. What that means, because that's a lot of big words, is that we were using money, I guess you could call it bribing, these different countries to be friends with us. We were buying their friendship. But it was important because these were nations that are located in places where we have enemies, where we have countries that would like to harm us. So we went ahead and gave money to these countries for different projects, for different needs that they had in order to foster a relationship where we would be able to put our military bases into those countries in order to protect us and our interests from different countries that don't like us. So by ending U.S. aid, basically, we have cut off all of these relationships we fostered over the years, which means our enemies now are unchecked. Because obviously, why would these countries want our military bases there if we're not helping them in some way? So we basically handed over all of these countries that we fostered relationships with to our enemies. What's this mean? It means that the resources that were available in those countries, not just materials, but people, are now owned, controlled by other countries that are our enemies. It gives them more power. It makes them stronger. It's similar to what happens with the tariffs, because the nations we were doing business with without tariffs are now getting their goods from other countries, not America. So they're fostering relationships with countries like Russia and China instead of with the United States. So this is a very, very, very bad thing. Now, add to the fact that we've cut off all of these relationships that we had overseas. We have now learned last night that the president plans on continuing his goal of becoming an imperialist. What is that? An imperialist is someone who takes over sovereign nations. Sovereign nations are nations that have their own economic system, their own system of government, and are run solely for their own good. They don't need other countries coming in and helping them. They are able to function as a nation. They might get help from nations that want to foster a relationship, such as a trade relationship, or maybe a military relationship. For instance, we've helped Taiwan by building bases and having our military helping to train them, train their own military. So even sovereign nations will sometimes work with other nations in order to strengthen. Okay, so now we have a president who's talking about taking over Panama, Greenland, Canada, Mexico, and as of last night has also said that he wants to go in with the military and take over Gaza. What this means is that he is planning on sending your sons, possibly even your daughters, your grandchildren, yourselves if you're young enough, to go fight battles to take over sovereign nations. Does that benefit us? Not really, because we had working relationships with a lot of these nations. We were doing really well before all this talk of imperialism and all the tariffs and all the rest of it. Okay, so here's the real issue. Gaza is a Palestinian nation. Okay? Granted, right now, Hamas is controlling it. They are a terrorist group. But taking over that nation by the United States of America is going to enrage the rest of the Arab nations. Think about that. Think about the fact that this president ran on the idea that he was going to make your life better, your life safer, that he was going to keep us out of wars. He was going to end all of the wars that were going on. Instead, here we are, poking the bear in his den. We are saying to all of the other nations in the Arab world that we have no respect for their sovereignty, because we are planning on going in with our military and taking over Gaza. That is the stupidest thing he has said, despite the fact everything he has said so far has really been pretty bad for those of us who are just the general population. Unless you're a billionaire who can profit from all of these wars that he plans to get us into, unless you're a billionaire who can afford to pay more at the market or for anything else that you might need, this president really is making a mess of it. You voted for him, so congratulations. I guess this is what you wanted. You wanted America to annex all of these countries. I mean, you're trying to get rid of all the brown people, and here you are wanting to annex a Mexican country, an Arab nation. They're brown people, folks. They're all brown. If we annex them, instead of getting rid of the brown people, you're bringing them in. You're adding them to our country. Okay, that's not the worst of it. I mean, for you, that's probably the worst of it, because you're MAGA. You don't like brown people. But here's a fact. Our country was attacked 9/11. Remember that date? I do. I had smoke from the Twin Towers filter down to where I lived. The fact is, they've attacked once. Do you think that they won't attack us again? Because Trump pulled us out of any agreement with Arab nations that prevented them from building nuclear weapons. These countries have weapons of mass destruction. And by voting for him, he thinks that you've said it's okay for him to start wars, to follow a path of imperialism. I don't know what to tell you. Your hatred for brown people is just so obscene that you would rather risk our safety than admit you were wrong to vote for him. Because that's what you did. You voted for someone whose favorite book is Mein Kampf, and he is living the dream of being the new Hitler. He told you he wanted to be a dictator. And you didn't listen. You didn't think about what that meant. So now his imperialist wet dream is to take over all of these sovereign nations and turn countries against us. Our military isn't very strong right now. We haven't really had a push to get people into the military. So our numbers are fairly low, first of all. But then add to that, we became a peacekeeping organization. All of our military have been trained for peacekeeping, not to go in and fight to the death. So they're not prepared for what they're going to face. Because these other nations have been working to make sure their military is strong, well-trained, well-equipped. If we follow this path of imperialism, I will guarantee you that the United States of America will not be safe. The president himself even discussed the fact during the press conference yesterday that if there is an attempt by Iran or Iraq to kill him, he will level their country. It's a joke. We don't have the power anymore to do that. Trust me. Our weapons are ancient. We're a weak nation. And having a president who is constantly creating reason for other countries to go after us. We've never fought a war on our own territory, not since the Civil War. But I can guarantee this war will be fought on American soil, because these other countries that we have been humiliating, we've been threatening, are all banding together, and they will go after us. Not because they want to, but because they don't have a choice if this president continues to destroy our allies our relationships with these allies. His threats are just bonkers, insane. You voted for this so you could get rid of brown-skinned people, but he wants to annex Mexico, Gaza. Look at the people who will be annexed, who will become part of America. They're brown. You hate them. Congratulations, MAGA. You did it. Instead of getting rid of all the brown people like you wanted, you've told the president that you're fine with the idea that he's going to annex all these countries. He's going to put an imperialist push to get all these brown people to join America. Wow, you guys are really something. Well, I hope you're happy. I hope you're very pleased with this, because this is part of what you voted for, so enjoy.